So I'll go on the internet sometimes and I'll read up on stuff and see what people are saying, and every now and again I'll come across some threads on Jaws, and sometimes Jaws 2 specifically. And I don't know, I'm always kind of surprised that that movie has a lot of people that like don't like it or don't think it's good. Now, here's the thing. I mean, never not listen to people's opinions and hear them out. And quite frankly, if you ever hear me say don't trust this person's opinion or don't trust that person's opinion, you should probably start questioning mine. I don't know, though. I mean, I always loved Jaws 2. I thought it was a great sequel. I mean, I think it's a great movie, period. But here's the thing. You know, the first Jaws is obviously one of the greatest movies. Quite frankly, I would put the word perfect next to it. You know, and there's not been too many movies that you could probably genuinely say are perfect movies, but I don't know. I think Jaws is about as close to a perfect movie as you can truly get. And when it comes to a sequel, you know, sometimes just trying to be better is impossible. With Jaws 2, I think it's just really good. Of course, it's not the magnitude of the first one, but in terms of a horror movie sequel, in general, I think this is quite frankly one of the better ones. You know, so obviously with Jaws 2, you don't have that perfect camaraderie and probably some of the greatest character development you've ever seen in a film with Brody, Quint, and Hooper. I mean, when they're on the boat late at night and they're singing together and showing each other their scars, I don't know that I've ever fallen in love with three characters more in a movie. But, you know, Roy Scheider, I mean, I always thought he was a guy that was just, he had that X factor. You know, it seems like back in the day they had more actors that could really get famous because they had these genuine acting abilities and skills. A lot of times nowadays in big budget movies, it's either how great you look or how good a shape you're in. Now, I'm not saying that there's not good actors nowadays, but I don't know. I just felt like back then, you know, especially with directors, they just wanted to give the job to the person who could best do the role. And I feel like that with actors back in the 70s specifically. There were some really talented actors back then. Roy Scheider is one of those guys that, quite frankly, I don't know if I've ever seen him in a movie, whether I love the movie or not, where he just wasn't magnifying and captivated your attention and captivated your... he captivated. I mean, he's just one of those great actors. I miss him. I wish he was still with us. But, you know, Roy Scheider has to carry this movie because Hooper's gone and Quint obviously bit the dust in the first movie. But the character development of Roy Scheider in this movie I thought was good. Chief Brody's back at it again and he's got to protect Amityville, but the paranoia from what he went through with the first movie has led him to believe that another shark is coming back, and you know, he shoots a school of fish thinking it's a big shark and causes a panic on the beach. It's a great scene. And then you've got the mayor again who, unfortunately, even though he went through the hellish stuff that happened in the first one and saw the horrors, he's more concerned about keeping his position rather than listening to Chief Brody about the potential of another shark coming across this beach. I always loved that. There's a great scene where Roy Scheider's in this room with the mayor and all these other henchmen, and you know Brody's trying to say this is another shark, he's back, and it's this great scene, and then they don't want to believe him. They're all worried about that almighty dollar, getting the tourists on the beach and keeping the beaches open. It's a little poetic, don't you think? Kind of reminiscent of the world we live in, not to get political. But I don't know. I always thought that Jaws 2 was a good movie. You know, when you look at Jaws 3 and 4, the fans of those movies pretty much unanimously agree that those are fun, bad movies. You know, the story-wise, they're not exactly, you know, great drama art. They're really just fun shark movies. But when it comes to Jaws 2, I always compared it more with the level and quality of the first one rather than the two sequels. I mean, I can enjoy Jaws the Revenge and Jaws 3D for their fun, exhilarating, funny moments, especially in the Revenge with its perplexing storyline, and Jaws 3 with its gimmicks, its 3D gimmicks and fun kills. But Jaws 2, I always thought this was just a good movie that I would kind of compare more with the first one rather than the other two. You know, again, sometimes you can't magnify and get to that perfection of the first one. But Jaws 2, I just always thought it was a great horror movie sequel. You know, I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm a big fan of this film. I always thought that the shark was great in this movie, and when he shows up, it's great. A thing about Jaws 2, too, is I always felt like this was like the slasher film of the bunch. This one had that kind of foreboding sense that I felt from slasher films in this movie. Maybe some of you would call Jaws 2 a slasher film. I don't know. But I always got that sense from this movie. You know, I always like the characters, always like the elements of Brody's son going out in the boat even though he wasn't supposed to, and then the shark showing up and destroying everything. It's great. It's a great shot on scene. I mean, the shark looks great in this movie too. And you can't forget about that girl who's skiing on the water and you see the fin come up and it's just coming right at her. I mean, talk about a scary moment. Spielberg made a great first movie. Quite frankly, I think it's the best movie he ever did. And to come up with a sequel for this is a daunting task, but I don't know. I actually thought Jaws 2 did a good job. Again, sometimes you can't touch the quality of the first one, but I don't always think that's necessary. Just give it your best effort, give me a good story, and try to bring back some of the characters that you can, and make a good movie. Like, in essence, I think Jaws 2 is a really good sequel. And, you know, quite frankly, I think it's underrated is not the term, because everybody knows and has an opinion on Jaws 2, but I think it should be reevaluated a little bit by people. Because typically when 4th of July happens, we all go and watch that classic first film. Well, do me a favor. Next 4th of July, if you have the time, put on Jaws 2. See what you think. I think you could be surprised on a revisit.